Hey, I'm Nicole with Realty Masters. I wanted to talk to you today about the Florida Military Clause, just give you a good understanding of what it is and how to use it. In Florida, you don't have to have a military clause attached to your lease because it is actually part of Florida landlord tenant law statute. It's nice to have, that way you have a good understanding with your landlord and yourself of what the requirements are, but again, it's not needed. What the military clause says is that it gives you an out of your lease agreement with proper notice. There are a few circumstances the military clause applies, and the most common is if you get a PCS orders to a base that's 35 miles away from the leased rental property that you're living in. Other situations can be if you get a transfer to base housing, or if you get TDY orders 60 or more days away from the leased property. It also has to be 35 miles away from the leased property and has to be for at least 60 days for TDY orders to apply. The most common mistake that we see when people are trying to utilize their military clause is that they don't get the timing right and they don't provide a written 30-day notice to the landlord. You do have to give a written 30-day notice, and it has to be accompanied by either a letter from your commanding officer or a copy of your orders. So sometimes we see people waiting till they get their orders to give that 30-day notice, and unfortunately that causes them to have to pay additional rent beyond their detached date. If you want to avoid that, you can get a letter from your CO and submit that with your notice, and that starts the clock for your 30-day notice. The only other thing that applies really here in Pensacola is the 35 plus miles, because we do have two bases, one in Milton, Whiting Field, and one Pensacola Naval Air Station. You want to make sure that you're mapping this. Sometimes people try to break their lease and move from Southwest Pensacola to go to Whiting Field NAS, and it's not 35 plus miles. If you are planning to do tours at both NAS Pensacola and NAS Whiting Field, you may want to consider something in Northeast Pensacola, Beulah area, or Pace to kind of be in the middle between both bases. But don't rent something in Southwest Pensacola if you intend to be going to Milton. That's going to be a long drive. And if you do, make sure it's 35 plus miles away, which can be achieved if you're in Perdido Key or at the very back gate of NAS. So hopefully that's helpful for your military clause. Let us know if you have any questions.